Says, you've got something here. Let's go to work on it. And I told him, we don't have a pot to piss in. I'm sorry. But we can't get the kind of money you need. And he says, let me think about it. And that's when that plan of keeping the little pieces came up. To do it, to do it more seriously. So he began to do, he did another one. Next slide. Oh, excuse me, this is the next test he did. He was so excited, he did this test. And this was really cool, I think. Spectrophotometer illustrates light wave absorbance in pure DNA. This is how it looks, human DNA. This curve right here. This is how no DNA looks. And this is how protein contamination looks. And they all know how this goes. And so he just wanted to see how it would look. Next slide. And what you see is the human looks very much like it's supposed to look. But the Starchild looks like kind of a drunk snake, doesn't it? Just, what is it? It's not really no DNA. It's not protein contamination. It's not human. What is it? And this too, he said, this tells you this is very unusual what you have here. I don't know what it is, but this is not normal. Very cool. Next slide. Now we're going to move to the big kahuna, all right? He was looking for something out of that 3% that worked, not mitochondrial DNA, but nuclear DNA. He started calling it the golden needle. I've got to find the golden needle in the haystack. And one of these, it's called shotgunning. What he does, he just shotguns it out, and it can hit anywhere. It's like a shotgun blast. You just never know what you're going to get. It's a shotgun. So he says, I've got to find the golden needle in the haystack. I've got to find a piece that comes out of the 3% that works, so it will tell me something about how the Starchild works versus how the human works. So he calls me up and he says, man, guess what? I didn't find a golden needle, I found a diamond needle. You won't believe this. And this is what it is. In every human embryo, a gene called forkhead box P2, or FOXP2, is a master gene controlling embryonic growth in at least 300 other crucial genes, and some people argue it can be as many as 1,000. So this one single gene, FOXP2, controls the effect, has a downward flow on at least 300 and maybe, we don't know how many. They're still trying to figure it out. But it controls motor skills, we know for sure, brain development, lung development, speech, nerve communication. It's like your center core, and it's controlling all of that. So, what do you suppose happens if there's some kind of a difference or a variation or a mutation in a FOXP2 gene when you're an embryo? You are screwed, blued, and tattooed. You are done for. You are going to miscarry, as a rule. One change, one. It's one of the most highly conserved genes in our bodies. Why? Because it can't afford mistakes. It just can't afford mistakes. Now, there are mistakes. There is one change that can be made, and you will be born, and you will live, and you will never speak. That's how they found out that it's speech related. So you can have one, but if you do, and you're born, as I said, you are screwed, blued, and tattooed. You are not in good shape. You need absolutely everything to go right in your FOXP2. All of us sitting in this room, our FOXP2s are the same, exactly. Every base pair in yours, and yours, and yours is exactly the same as every base pair in mine, or we're not standing here being who we are. FOXP2, highly, highly conserved. No change, understand. Next slide. Now, and the FOXP2 gene has 2,594 base pairs. It is one of the most highly conserved genes in our bodies. Changes almost never happen. Each one of those 25 in normal humans is exactly the same, what I just said. Next slide. This is FOXP2, what it looks like. A 211 base pair fragment. He recovered a 211 base pair fragment of the Starchild's FOXP2, the diamond needle. This is it. FOXP2 is compared to the exact same 211 base pairs in human FOXP2 in blue, this one, and in other species of animals. Rhesus, monkey, mouse, dog, elephant, possum, chicken, frog, and zebrafish, right on down. Okay, and you see, exon, this is it. This is a absolutely head-to-head comparison. Remember I said he had to be able to make a head-to-head comparison? You have it right here. What does this tell us? Next slide. what it tells us, this is too bad. Starchild's 211 base pair fragment is 56 variations. There's your rhesus monkey. There's no variations in humans and Neanderthals and Denisovans. It's all the same. In a rhesus monkey, you're up to 2, 20 for the mouse, 27 for the dog, 21 for the elephant, 21 for the possum, 26 for the frog, 56 for the Starchild. Really, really amazing. So 211 is 8%. It's almost like the 9.5% of the other ones. It is significant. Of the base pair total in the FOXP2 gene, extrapolate 8% out to 100, you get 12.5. 12.5 times 56 is 700 plus or minus Starchild DNA variations. 700, where 1 is the maximum. You with me?
Yeah.
This is what the, next slide, this is what the geneticist, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot. This is the newest one, the newest one is, he found a collagen-like protein fragment identified by a collagen pattern search. A human fragment sequence is shown in blue. The collagen characteristics pattern of glycine is pink. Note the amount of proline in association with the glycine. It has a special meaning. You see glycine, proline, proline, glycine, proline, glycine, proline. You see it like that all together? Guess what pulls up for this? Next slide. The glycine proline pattern in the previous fragment resembles the pattern found in collagen 8, a protein found largely in the corneal endothelium of human eyes. Now, let me explain how this works. Collagen makes up 25 to 35% of our bodies. It's a lot of our bones and all that. Collagen, 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 it makes up a lot of things. So there's a lot of different kinds of collagen. Collagen 8 is this very exotic kind that makes this lining of the inside of the eye that faces into the, to the lens from the cornea. Very, very specific collagen, and that's what he finds from the Starchild. Now, it's very, very different from the human because the Starchild has a very, very different eye. Another piece of the puzzle that's just completely different. So next slide. This is where, it's too bad you're going to miss some of that. The comment from our geneticist in his recently composed abstract. Now, he wrote an abstract. It's on the Starchild website. You can try to read it, but I assure you, you won't get very far in it because it's written in that language, that science language. But this is where the geneticist from Stanford contacted me. He said, I read the abstract and I'm very impressed. And I want to meet with you about it. So this is what he says. The probability that such a highly specific arrangement of changes in a small fragment could have occurred by accumulation of sequencing errors is extremely low, if not close to 0. Nor could this arrangement have occurred due to contamination with the DNA of any known species. From this evidence, one may conclude the underlying biochemistry of the entity's life form must be either the same as or highly similar to humans or other species, yet the use of the genetic code, which still, and basically it says, it's sort of the same, but is clearly very different. And again, this is more on level of what I've been showing you here. Anybody can see this. Next slide. So, where are we going with this? In the 1500s, these men moved the Earth from the center of the universe to its proper position. This was a profound experience for everybody alive at the time. The Earth is not it. The Earth operates, circles around the sun, and everybody had to adjust to that. It was shocking. Next slide. The Wright brothers in 203, they moved us all into our future where our planet gained a convenient scale. They shrunk the planet for us. They gave us a different world. Next slide. The Starchild is going to do, Neil Armstrong took the first step for all of us toward our inevitable future in space. Well, that better be an important call because this is right at the end. Okay, anyway, so this too was a big, big step in human history. Next slide. And the Starchild skull is poised to transform humans into members of a galactic community, to prove that we are members of a galactic community. And coincidentally, next slide, maybe the Starchild heralds a new beginning that we have all heard 2012 might bring. This could be it. This could be it. The new future, the new whatever. Instead of all what they're saying, maybe this is it. We still have time to be it. if we get our funding, which could happen. You never know. Next slide. So how do we get from here to there? How do we move the Starchild from being a partial proof of one of the greatest discoveries in all of human history to acceptance by mainstream science for what it so obviously is? How do we do that? We follow, next slide, we follow my friend Bob Rue's philosophy of life. Now, you all remember Hurricane Katrina. Here's Bob with "Don't try." This is to the looters. Don't try. I'm sleeping inside with a big dog, an ugly woman, 2 shotguns, and a claw hammer. This is his Oriental rug shop. He's one of the guys that didn't leave. He stayed to protect what was there from the looters. And the water, I might add, you see where he's standing? About 2 feet from there is where the water rose to its high point. But he knew that was going to happen. Because what people don't know, and it's always a nice little anecdote to throw in, is that everybody wonders, why in the world would New Orleans build a city in a bowl? Why would that happen? Well, what really happened was back way in the 1700s when they were first settling the area, the Mississippi River would flood out to 100 miles on each side, and that's how the Delta was created, right? So the French and the Spaniards and the people like that who would do this kind of stuff, they knew that they had to wait to the highest point of the flood, sail down the river, and find any land that was up and was suitable to build a city, because that would never flood. And there was this big crescent of land in one of the bows of the Mississippi River, and it was the biggest one there was, and on that crescent they formed the city of New Orleans. And sure enough, it never did flood. That part is still the Garden District of today, if you've ever been there, the rich part of town. But as the city grew bigger and spread out, it spread out into the floodplain, and that's what happened. And then they began to build the skyscrapers there, and it sank it down, and now it's in a 17-foot bowl as the soft land went down. You can't tell it just standing there, you just feel everything flat because it's like this. But Bob knew his shop was on the old, everybody knows where the old line is. And he said, it's going to come close, but I don't think it's going to, because Oriental rugs, Oriental rugs, they're ruined if they get, floodwater. And they're ruined if they get stolen, and he wasn't going to let that happen. So he stayed and he stuck it out. Don't try. This sign, by the way, became famous. It was in over 800 newspapers around the world. He became like a symbol of defiance of the looters and people sticking it out and all this. And that sign is now in a museum in New Orleans, and if you go, you might be able to see it. He was offered $10,000 for it by one of the main newspaper people that were there. I'm trying to think of his name, but anyway, what Bob did, I'm sorry, I'm just rambling, but it's a fun story. He and his wife, he looks like a complete slob, and he is. He's a bum. He and I were roommates in the French Quarter when we were young. Did some damage to the girls, I won't deny it. But nonetheless, this is a cool guy. He doesn't look it anymore. I don't look it anymore, but we were neat in our day. He looks like a slob, but he lives in one of the Garden District mansions. His wife is fairly wealthy, and he does okay here, but this is just how it's like he says, he's a fisherman, he's a Greek fisherman's son. He says, I'm going to be a Greek fisherman's son till the day I die. So he stayed, and everybody that saw this knew he was there, and they started calling him, and they were saying, Bob, go to my house, the key is under this, and go in and make sure everything is okay, protect us from the looters, and you can have anything in the freezer because it's just going to go bad, and eat anything in the food we have and everything. What they didn't say is you can raid the wine cellars too, but they did that. So what he became Party Central for all the newspaper and media people, the television people that came to New Orleans and needed needed foods and stuff. He's a good cook, cooks good gumbo, good jambalaya, the whole. So what gumbos and jambalayas are, they're just a bunch of things thrown together and thrown together well. So what Bob would do is he would make these big urns full of food, and everybody knew that at his place there was going to be a party that night and meals, and that went on for like 3 weeks. Every night, and so everybody knew who he was, still do, still come and say hi to him and stuff like that. And that's making the best of a really bad situation. So next slide.